let's address that issue of this being a long-term game and what you believe are the growth drivers at this point in time that will ensure that companies that have actually built in resilience, companies that have got the fundamentals in place will be able to leverage on the advantage and the opportunities that this economy is now throwing up.
Actually, you can look at both ways, right? At times, these trying times drive more innovation than what you imagine, right? It's very easy to get settled into a status quo and say, by the way, this is how things will be done. But that constant drive for innovation, the constant need to drive profitability, drives you into a very new tangent altogether. And we are seeing that not only just for the unicorns, the likes of unicorns, but also the large incumbents, like the ones that Upstox would have upsetted, right? They are lock, stock and barrel changing as well, right? So we are going to get into very new spaces, and for what I feel is tomorrow will be the age of frenemies, where a lot of these organizations will have to work in tandem, right? At times within the same space as well. But how do you address the customer need? How close you are true to the real value proposition that you bring to the table, and continue to build your product and your service, keep on innovating, keep on building on top of that, will be the key differentiator. So there are a lot of things, a lot of factors around that. One of the good things which is happening is also a lot of areas, over a period of time anyway, the regulation is also changing progressively. So hopefully that journey will continue, because that is also providing a little more level playing field in the market for the organizations to come up and build something new. And so is all the spend which is happening, right? Whether it is the core infrastructure build which is happening, right? Which is going to help, let's say, the tomorrow's e-commerce companies, right? For example. So that is facilitating a lot of drive around the innovation, as well as the funding that is being available in the market as well.
Yeah, Marian, in your experience now of working with digital native businesses, what is exciting to you and what are you concerned about?
Well, there are a couple of things that you could hear also from our panelists today. Customer centricity always comes first. Like, if there is no customer value, like chasing value that you just said, this is something that for the last couple of years maybe was not so much in focus. It was always the next round, but the long-term focus, customer centricity, something we've heard, product market fit, and kind of a building and adjusting as we go. This is all the traits of the digital businesses. I've seen so many of them pivoting around very quickly, like as the market dictates, as the customer feedback comes in, as the competition changes and the competitive landscape. Like, these companies are so quick to adapt and so stubborn sometimes on their vision, but very flexible on how they get to it. And this is something that's really, like, if you compare it to some traditional companies, it's a world of difference. And this is what makes these companies much more resilient and much more prone to all of these tectonic shifts that we are seeing on the market.
What differentiates a truly agile, a truly nimble company? What is it within the culture, the cultural ecosystem, the ethos of the company that ensures that nimbleness and agility?
So I would say probably the level at which decisions are made. If you really push the decision making to the edge, to the teams real implement, like Amazon example is a good one of two-way door and one-way door decision making. Any two-way door decision making should not stop, slow down, should not hinder in any way, shape or form the progress and the innovation that happens at the edge. Typically, innovation never happens on the top in the ivory towers. It always happens at the direct customer contact. It happens at the front line. And this is if these companies, when they manage to actually delegate, I'm going to use that word, but delegate the decision-making authority to the edge, that's where you see the nimbleness, that's where you see agility, that's where you see innovation happening, that's where you see a lot of immediate customer feedback as well. And that's probably the single biggest thing that you can make to make nimble and agile organizations.
So how have you designed this feedback loop? Is there anything specific that you've done, changed over the last few years? Yeah.
I think so there are two feedback loops, right? One external, where your customers are talking about you, giving you feedback, writing into you, ratings on the Play Store, all those things. And I think it's important culturally to build a culture where you do not have a tolerance for any negative customer NPS in the system at all, right? And of course, you will never get to a point where there is none. But I think going down to the cultural traits, I would just say empathy and humility, right? Across, whether it's inside or outside, you need those two ingrained in your team.
Ravi?
I was going to say something very similar, right? I think being true to the customer, understanding your customer is very, very important in our culture. You know, we always, like all of our leaders are empowered to spend at least a day or two days a week just listening to customer calls, right? And again, I think every leader probably says this as well, but we actually do this, right? And we make sure we understand their pain points, and they're empowered to make these decisions on their own to some extent, to a large extent. But I think it all comes down to your culture, right? How much do you care? Sometimes you have to have trade-offs of, you know, you want to reduce costs, say, right? And how does that impact the end customer? So there's always trade-offs, right, as you build your business. But we always try to just, you know, keep the customer at the forefront of those decisions, essentially.
I think for us, being a very, very young company and going through cycles of growth internally as well, for us, decentralization of teams wherein they are going out and achieving their goals in whatever fashion, given the principles of courage, trust and freedom, that's worked for us, to be honest.
I like that, courage, trust and freedom. So let me end by asking each one of you, what is the most courageous thing that you've done? I'll start with you.
I think the most courageous thing that we did very early in our journey was we were just a 3-month-old startup, and we went ahead. We didn't even had probably the money in the bank. I mean, it would have been something which is very, very terrible to do today, probably in the current market. But we went ahead and signed up Virat Kohli as a brand ambassador, and that was a pretty courageous move for a 3-month-old startup.
And clearly that's paid off for you?
Yeah, definitely.
What has been the most courageous thing that you've done?
Something very similar, I would say, right?
What, signed up with Anushka Sharma or Virat Kohli? Who did you sign?
No, we basically sponsored IPL and ICC the same year, and it was a very expensive purchase, and you know, it happened very quickly, and I think it required a lot of courage from a financial spending perspective, at least.
Yeah, I would imagine. It would have cost you a significant amount of money.
Yeah, it did.
Alok?
We acquired 2 companies in the middle of COVID. Early 2021, we made a couple of acquisitions. The first one early, and then mid-2021, the second one. Both these companies, we had signed the term sheet just when the first lockdown ended. So we didn't know whether COVID would be over. We didn't have the money to buy these companies. We actually went and raised venture debt and then another round of funding to buy those companies. But both those companies are doing very well. So we are proud of that decision.
We wish you the very best of luck in your journey to create value and hopefully valuation as well. Thank you very much for joining us here on the AWS Unicorn Startup Street panel. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Shireen.
Thank you.